And just before we get the video started, I want to talk to you guys about an app, Real Cappers. I think it's a great app, and they're improving the app currently. Right now, what it is, it's an app for UFC predictions, currently expert insight, and basically they're trying to get all the best cappers, all the best minds in MMA, the most in tune people to the sport, the people that are going to be giving the best advice all in one place where they aggregate everybody's predictions. You can go there, you could see 55% of the people on this website are currently on this fighter, and they're adding different features as well. As you see, previously they only had just for you to pick a winner and write a description, and now have included the method of victory as well. They've included if you want to put the under, the over, the fight's going to go to decision, the fight will not go to decision. So they're adding different elements as well into the fight, into the fight night predictions thing on their site to give you even more information. And ultimately, I think it's going to become a very big app. I think that more people are going to join. I think that we're going to get a great community over here on Real Cappers, and definitely think you should check it out. They're on the App Store. They're on the Google Play Store. They got a website. So go sign up. It's free. You could look at everyone's picks. You could purchase picks from people that you think are the best at giving predictions on that site. And you can even put your own predictions up for sale as well. So definitely think that it's something that you should check out. Real Cappers. Go download it today. And thanks for watching this video. Yo, what's up, guys? We're back for another breakdown of predictions video. This week we got a good one. We got UFC Sao Paulo. UFC's going back to Brazil for the first time since UFC 283. And we got the main event with Derrick Lewis taking on Jailton Almeida. Kind of the big test to see if Jailton Almeida can break into that top 5. And besides that, man, already got a few bets. Go to patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. Check it out. Definitely think you'll be getting good value over there. We're 6 for 6 on profitable years if we finish out the year where we are currently in profit. And I feel like I got one of the best or better resumes in the game right now for MMA capping. So definitely go check out patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. And make sure to hit the like button on this video. Let's try to get 150 likes. I would really appreciate that. And just to kind of talk about something from last week, I did say that if we got 50 likes on that LFA video, I would do an Invicta video, and we did get over 50 likes, so I'm going to be giving you guys another video this week because by the time we got to 50 likes on that video, it was like 1 hour before Invicta started, so it's kind of hard to end up doing a video. But yeah, man, going to give you guys kind of a betting breakdown video later in the week for this card, and just make sure to hit the like button, put a comment down below. Let's get some interaction on this video. I would really appreciate it if we got 50 comments, you got 150 likes, that'd be amazing. So comment it up, like it up. Let's try to get this video going, and let's get in this first fight of the night here. And the first fight, we got Caio Fernandes taking on Mark Jacasey. And Caio Fernandes, UFC debut. He is a Brazilian guy. He's training out of Novo União, so obviously that's one of the best gyms that Brazil has ever produced. And he has an 8-1 pro record. He's a dangerous guy. He has 5 first-round finishes. He has 6 finishes overall out of 8 wins. And he's been fighting decent competition recently. And he's going to be fighting Mark Jacasey, who's a 14-fight UFC veteran. He's been in the UFC for over 7 years now. I would say initially he had more expectations and he didn't really reach them, but he's managed to keep a job for a long time and has had a fairly good career going 7-7 in the UFC. He has never fought in Brazil, though, so that is going to be a new experience for him. And he has lost 2 fights in a row, so kind of has his back against the wall, but experienced veteran. He's fought in 6 different countries, so I believe that he's going to go out there and be able to perform well. But Fernandes, I would say he is a good kicker and a good grappler. He has a black belt jiu-jitsu. He, at his best, in my opinion, is when he can get in top position. On the feet, he likes to try to keep it long, evasive, get fighters out of position, and then go for the body lock. And once he's on top, he has good top control. He'll pass guard effectively. He has a decent submission and ground and pound game. He doesn't really have the best wrestling. I feel like he could struggle to get guys to the mat, and he can get taken down himself. On his back, he looked average, and I did see him held down and beat up in the second and third round against Luan Sardina. Sardina didn't shoot in on Fernandez or anything, though, and he got the takedowns through defensive wrestling. So I'm curious to see if Jacasey shoots in on Fernandez. Is Fernandez going to be ready for that? Because I haven't seen that in any of his fights. And being a Brazilian kicker who stands tall, I think there could definitely be potential that he can get taken down pretty easily. He is dangerous on the feet. I would say he's not the most technical with the hands. He'll duck his head and wing big hooks, overhands, uppercuts. And he has some okay power. His kicks are nasty, and he does have 2 knockouts in a row with kicks in the first round. He landed a gorgeous head kick with the lead leg in his last fight that came up like lightning, and it was in pretty close range where someone wouldn't normally be that efficient kicking from there. And his lead leg kicks to the body and head are very dangerous, and I would say he does have a chin. And you definitely want to be wary of Fernandez in the first round because if you can get stuck at range with him, he could definitely kick you in the head. But if you could jam his kicks with the pressure, you can get to him. You can land yourself. He isn't the greatest with his hands, like I said. And his cardio didn't really impress me in his fight with Sardina. He did slow down. Mark Jacasey, he's kind of turned into England's D1 wrestler in the UFC in recent years. He's pushed a really heavy wrestling game plan. He's a super strong physical guy. He'll push guys against the fence, get the double leg. He can lift and slam. He kind of is a lay and pray fighter on top. He likes to get the wrestling ride position and just grind it out. Mat return fighters or sit in full guard and kind of let go with some minimal ground and pound. He needs to be alert to the armbar here because Fernandez does have a few armbars on his record, but Jacasey was able to shut down the submissions in his last fight against Joel Alvarez when he got the takedown, and he ended up getting caught in a submission after an unfortunate moment where he did get hit with the headbutt and the ref didn't see it, and then shortly after he ended up getting submitted. And if you look at his record, though, Jacasey's been submitted 3 times, all 3 of them via front chokes. So if I'm Fernandez, that's something that I'm looking to attack. I haven't really seen Fernandez show a front choke game, but that could be potentially something that he's has in his back pocket. But Jacasey has shown he can wrestle hard for 3 rounds, and he doesn't get tired. I think he definitely has superior cardio in the matchup. I think he has the experience, and I don't think he should have any issues winning the wrestling exchanges, being on top here. And he's a good striker also. He's long, he's fast, he's powerful. He has a diverse arsenal of kicks. He'll throw kicks very fast to all parts of the body, and he has big power. He has wild spinning, jumping techniques, and he's accurate with them, though, and he's finished multiple fighters with crazy strikes. He also has good straight punches. He has good hand speed. He seems to struggle with southpaws and could struggle with pressure fighters that have good boxing and punching power, but in this fight, the striking should be a little bit more catered to his style of striking, where fighting a fellow kicker who likes to be on the outside, who I think has lesser hands in comparison to Jacasey. And I feel like Jacasey is better everywhere in this fight outside of jiu-jitsu potentially, and unless he ends up on his back, I don't see the jiu-jitsu really being a factor. I think he can control the grappling with his wrestling in his top game. I think on the feet he should be better. He has the better hands, but I think the wrestling is going to be his primarily weapon in this fight, and he's going to have the better cardio. So I'm going to say Mark Jacasey goes in there and wins via decision. And up next here we got Montserrat Ruiz taking on Eduarda Moura. And Montserrat Ruiz, she's on the last fight of her UFC contract. She's kind of in a win-or-be-cut situation, taking this fight on short notice too. And she's been a massive underdog in all 3 of her UFC fights. That doesn't change this time. She's a plus 375. And her first fight was against Cheyenne Vlismas, and she was able to get the job done via decision. Her last 2, she's gotten finished, and she wasn't competitive, so she needs to show that she's UFC level here, or at least can compete with someone like Eduarda Moura, who's making her UFC debut. Brazilian fighter, she's trains at the same gym as Jailton Almeida, kind of has a similar style, so it makes sense that she would be debuting on this card. 29 years old, so she doesn't really have a lot of time to mess around. She's in the prime of her career, and I expect her to try to move up the rankings quickly with a win here. A lot of girls that went on to become higher level, or maybe not a lot, but Amanda Lemos, and I think her last opponent as well, are 2 prospects that the UFC has visions for and think they're good fighters, so I feel like they feel the same about Moura. And Moura, on the Contender Series, she fought a 5-0 girl. She finished her. She's finished 8 of her 9 wins. So I think if she can get past Ruiz, she's going to be in a top 10, top 15 matchup for her next fight. But Moura, she's really big for the weight. One-track mindset. She wants to pressure opponents to the cage, shoot on them, put them on their backs. Really heavy on top. She has good ground and pound. She has a solid submission game, and she's methodical. She establishes position before going for submissions or ground and pound. And most of Eduarda Moura's wins are rear naked chokes. It seems like she has an incredibly strong squeeze because you see girls tap out really fast when she gets her choke locked in. And she's only been in a decision one time. It was a split decision against a fighter who's 12-14. So that looks really bad on paper. And obviously, regardless, it's a bad look or isn't a great look. But Moura's opponent, Aline Sotomayor, is a fighter who's fought the who's who of Brazilian prospects and hasn't been finished much. So I think it's not the worst. But I haven't seen that much striking from Moura, but I did watch a fight on her Instagram where she landed a brutal knee in the clinch. She floored her opponent. Her punching technique seems to be pretty decent. She'll throw some 1-2s, 3-2s, has some pop, has some speed. I feel like she's a pretty high-level prospect, but we don't know how she'll do against a good striker. We don't know how she'll fare if she gets resistance in the grappling, and we really don't know how her cardio is going to hold up because I wasn't even able to watch that fight with Sotomayor. But Conejo Ruiz, she is a short, compact fighter. She's going to be significantly shorter and have a significantly shorter reach in this fight, but she likes to kind of use her 3-2s on the counter, blitz in when girls are near the fence with punches. But she is bad striking, low volume, very hittable. Amanda Lemos took her out really early. One thing about Ruiz, though, she's really tough, has a great gas tank, and we all know she has that head and arm throw, which I don't think is going to be effective against Moura, but that's her thing. She's excellent at getting it, and once she gets there, she can control position well, has some scarf hold submissions. Against Jacqueline and Marm in her last fight, we did see she survived some really bad positions. She did eventually get finished in the third round, but obviously she's someone that could survive tough moments. But personally, I don't really see many ways that Ruiz can win this fight. I haven't seen more off her back at all, so maybe that's an avenue that Ruiz could take if Ruiz can get on top, but I just don't know. If she could survive early, maybe Moura will get tired, but I think Moura is definitely going to win this fight. I think the more difficult question to answer is whether she's going to finish Ruiz or Ruiz will be able to survive to the final bell, but I'm going to say Moura wins via late first-round submission or ground and pound. I think that Ruiz is tough and maybe could extend it, but excuse me, she was close to getting finished at the end of every round her last fight, and coming in short notice with a similar matchup, I think could see her getting finished early. So I'm going to go with Moura here via first-round submission. And up next, we got a short notice matchup, but a phenomenal matchup with Daniel Marcos, who's 15-0, who's a really, really fun fighter to watch. And he's going to be taking on now Victor Hugo, who we just saw in the Contender Series go in there and got a huge win on October 3rd. So he's coming back just a little bit over a month after that fight. Quick turnaround here. But Daniel Marcos was originally supposed to face Daniel Santos, which was another really interesting fight. But now he's facing a guy that's 24-4 and should be really fun to watch. But Marcos, he's 2-0 in the UFC already. He's coming off a big win over Davey Grant, whereas Victor Hugo has a big winning streak. He's won 13 fights in a row. But with this being his UFC debut, it's a big opportunity because if he wins this fight, he could be in line for a top 15, top 25 guy next off just one win in the UFC at 135, which is a shark tank of a division. But he's almost 31 years old, so I think it's good that the UFC has given him an opportunity to jump at short notice here, face a guy that has some hype around him, right outside the top 15 in my opinion, and potentially upset him and take his spot in the rankings. But that's going to be a difficult thing to do with Daniel Marcos. With Daniel Marcos, we got a guy that very, very skilled, composed striker. He does a really good job with his distance control. He has a great jab. He has really good boxing overall, and he just keeps the distance with his feints, his leg kicks, which I think could be a factor in this fight, and just good composure. He could sometimes be a little bit low volume and kind of be a counter striker like we saw in his last fight with Davey Grant. Grant was throwing a lot more volume, and even though a lot of the strikes are hitting the gloves or kind of missing, just the optics with Marcos going backwards and not throwing many strikes, even though he won the fight, it was a split decision and it was a lot more competitive than, in my opinion, it should have been, because I think Marcos was landing a lot cleaner. He busted up Davy Grant's face pretty bad, but everyone was seeing him going backwards and not throwing a lot of volume, and that can cost you in certain fights. But Marcos, very clean counter striker, and he also has great takedown defense. His takedown defense is really phenomenal, and that's going to be something that gets put to the test in this fight, because he's facing a very explosive, big guy for the weight. And that's one thing that I am a little bit worried about, is Hugo's having these 2 weight cuts in short succession. He had to travel to the U.S., fight over there in Las Vegas. Now he's back in Brazil fighting in Brazil, a little bit over a month later. And I know he lives in Brazil and all that, but with the travel, just getting a win, getting into the UFC, he probably had to celebrate a little bit, and now he's getting thrown into a fight. I think it's a tough proposition, but the guy's a beast. I mean, Victor Hugo, incredibly explosive guy. In this fight, he's definitely going to be looking to wrestle and get it to the ground, but he has exceptional head movement, and then he'll throw big kind of looping strikes from weird angles that could clip you, and he can get wild in there, and I feel like he does slow down a little bit, but his cardio holds up and he pushes a high pace, so it's not like he's a gasser or anything like that. It's just when he's not getting the takedowns, maybe in the later rounds, there's some lulls in activity on the feet, but it seems like he can wrestle heavy for 3 rounds, and great submission game. Obviously, those leg locks are his thing, and with Daniel Marcos taking this fight on relatively short notice, you don't know if he's been getting, this leg lock defense on point, or certain things that Victor Hugo likes to do. So Hugo can come in here kind of nothing to lose, facing a guy that maybe he doesn't necessarily know a lot of his tendencies either, but he can go in there and maybe surprise Marcos, who is getting ready for more of a striker fight with Daniel Santos. So it's an interesting matchup, but I feel like just with all the things outside going on, I think that's why Marcos is going to take it. I think he's going to show them more composure on their feet, defend a few takedowns. I think he's going to use his leg kicks to affect Hugo's explosiveness and speed. And I feel like if this was a full camp Victor Hugo, if this wasn't Victor Hugo who had 2 weight cuts in really short succession, then maybe I would pick him as the underdog. But I'm going to go towards the more composed, experienced UFC veteran in Daniel Marcos, that I think is the better striker, that I think could attack the legs, attack the body on a guy that has great head movement that's hard to hit to the head. Maybe attacking the lower torso could be easier to hit him there. And I think Marcos has shown that he could shut down the wrestling, but I am a little bit worried. I mean, if he does get put on his back, Hugo is a dangerous guy when he can get it there. So I think this is fun matchup, maybe a dog or pass type of matchup, but I am going to go with Daniel Marcos to get the victory, and I'll say he wins via decision. And up next, we got a fight that is kind of the fight of the week that has people split, a lot of different opinions, with people going with Denise Gomes, people going with Angela Hill, and really interesting matchup here, because we got a girl in Denise Gomes who's very young, 23 years old. She obviously has the advantages of this fight being in Brazil. She's going to have the crowd behind her. She's going to have the less travel, all that. And I think it's a bit of an advantage. You could say it's an advantage or a disadvantage, I guess. She hasn't gotten the cage time, but being this young, you know that she's going to be improving quite a bit from fight to fight, at least in my opinion. I mean, to make it to the UFC at 21 years old or 22 years old, however old she was, is a great achievement. And she hasn't gotten that much fight time. She's won in there against Bruna Brazil. She took her out. I guess that one was in the second round. We got to see a little bit more, but it was early in the second round. Her last fight ended in less than 20 seconds, so we didn't really get to see much at all. And we could, if fights get extended, see a better version or a more polished, cleaner version of a Denise Gomes. So that's something that you always have to take into account. And Angela Hill, I think she's on the other side of the spectrum, where 38 years old, you could argue she's still kind of in her prime or right around her prime. I do think she was a little bit better a few years ago, like when she was fighting Claudia Gadelha, when she was fighting Michelle Watterson and things like that. I think that was kind of when she was at her peak. But still very solid fighter. But man, I mean, just 6 months ago, she absorbed 247 strikes. She got dropped. She had her face busted up pretty badly. So, coming back fairly quick, in my opinion, from a beatdown like that, and 38 years old. So, obviously, I think it's definitely going to be starting to go downhill sooner or later for Hill, even if you think she still kind of has it at this point. That type of beatdown in her last fight could kind of have been the end of it. You don't ever really know, but obviously I don't think she looked bad in that fight, and previous to that she did get 2 wins over contenders, and it's usually the case that Hill can come in here, fight this level of opponent like a Denise Gomes, middling, right side of the top 10, and kind of pick them off and get the victory like she did over Loopy or Emily Ducote. So we're going to see if she can do that again. But I do think this is a tougher matchup. I mean, you look at the Loopy Godinez fight, and Godinez won the first round, and I can't remember if it was a short notice matchup for both girls or what was the issue, but they fought at 120, and I know there was for sure something that was, it was either short notice or something was going on with that fight. And Godinez gassed, man. I mean, you could tell in the second round she was tired, she was really breathing heavy, and she didn't bring that pressure necessary to beat a girl like Angela Hill, and Hill just kind of picked her apart with her high volume offense from the outside, which is what she does against a lot of these girls, like she did it against Ducote as well. But we've seen in multiple fights where if you pressure Angela Hill, you get in her face, you throw combinations, you don't kind of sit back and let her pick at you with the jab, with her kicks, you could land on her clean, and she's there, right there to be hit. And I feel like she's extremely durable. I mean, you cannot discount that. I mean, she's never been finished in her career, but she's been getting hurt early in fights quite a bit recently. I mean, you look at her fight with Amanda Lemos, she got dropped in the first round. Look at her fight with Loopy Godinez, she got rocked pretty bad in that first round. Even the fight with Mackenzie Dern, who's like not known as a striker. I mean, her last fight with Angela Hill, I think was the first time where she really went in there and dominated someone on the feet. And she dropped Angela Hill in the first round as well. And we all know Mackenzie Dern has shown power. Like, Dern does have a couple of knockout wins, but against Angela Hill, I mean, she was coming through her, throwing power punches, staying in Angela Hill's face, not giving her respect. And Hill had no answer for that, man. I mean, she was just diving for the clinch and ended up going on her back or losing the majority of that fight. I think she won the second round, but that was about it. And Denise Gomes, I mean, she's that type of fighter, man. She's extremely durable. She's going to be coming forward. Angela Hill, I mean, I do think she kind of leaves openings for that overhand right and straight right hand when she throws the jab. It's kind of lazy, and you can land those shots right over her jab, and that's happened in a lot of her fights. I think the clinch and wrestling, I mean, Angela Hill for all these years has been talking about how she's been working her wrestling and getting better with her grappling, and you've seen it. And obviously, to survive her last fight against Dern, that was something that was pretty impressive that I don't think she would have been able to done in other fights early in her career. But I don't think she can get takedowns necessarily unless it's like a body lock or something like that. And even if she does, Denise Gomes, I think, has better jiu-jitsu than people give her credit for. She did lose that fight to Loma Luke Bunmi, but that was her UFC debut. You have to take that into account. And I think Luke Bunmi throws with a lot more heat. Her kicks are more impactful. And I think she has better clinch takedowns than Angela Hill. If Angela Hill can't get on top of Gomes or start dominating in the clinch, then I think she could win that way. And this is an interesting fight because I could see a fight where Gomes gets another knockdown or some heavy damage in the first round. Hill comes back, wins the next two, and it could be a draw, honestly. But I'm going to go with Denise Gomes. I'm just going to go with the youth. I'm going to go with the power, my opinion, the explosiveness, athletic advantage. And I don't like the fact that Angela Hill just got beat down really bad her last fight. It's not super fast turnaround, but still I think she probably should have taken the rest of the year off, honestly. And I'm going to say Gomes gets the first round knockout, but even if it goes to decision, I'll say Gomes gets the job done. And with this next fight, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because I don't really think either guy is super dependable, so I don't really think a bet or anything here would be warranted, honestly. But Modestas Bukauskas versus Vitor Petrino. I like Modestas. I mean, he cashed for me as a big underdog when I bet on him to win via decision against Tyson Pedro. And went in there, beat Zach Palga as well. But this is a much tougher test, in my opinion, with a guy like Vitor Petrino, who's well-rounded. He could strike, he can grapple, he has power. And his wrestling looks decent, at least for a light heavyweight. I also think he's the more athletic, powerful guy. He just beat a similar opponent to Bukauskas in Marcin Prachnio. I feel like he didn't look the greatest in that fight, and obviously against Antas Turkali, I don't think he looked very good in that fight either. But Modestas, I thought he lost to Zach Palga. I didn't think he looked good in that fight at all. I don't think he's going to be able to clinch Petrino against the fence and hold him there. And I feel like his striking is decent, but I think Petrino's power, you have to go with him over Modestas' kind of technicality, because we've seen Modestas knocked out by light punchers like Jimmy Crute. And I think if Petrino can get on top, he can kind of do the business too there. And Modestas, for as much as he's improved his wrestling, that has been an issue for him in previous fights. So I'm going to pick Petrino here, but not a fight I have a ton of interest in. And this next fight, this is an awesome fight with Rinat Fakhretdinov taking on Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. And, man, I mean, the UFC, Zaleski, I feel like they kind of done him dirty throughout his UFC tenure. He's had a great run in the UFC. I mean, the guy has an exceptional record in UFC fights. He's went out. He's beaten current UFC champions. He's beaten some high-level prospects like Benoit Saint-Denis even recently. And UFC never really gave him that shot, like to fight a top 15 guy, to get into the rankings mix like that. Even when he was on his long winning streak, like he had a streak of 6-7 wins in a row, they just always give him these type of contender fights where they're trying to build a guy off of him, and if he wins, they give him another one. So Zaleski's last fight, he went out there, he beat Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Close fight, competitive fight, but he got the job done. And now they're going to see if he could take out another Dagestani kind of, I know he's not from Dagestan, but similar style fighter, heavy wrestling, and kind of that Caucasus style grappling. So Zaleski, I mean, we know how Zaleski fights all the time. The guy's a brawler. He has great jiu-jitsu as well. His takedown defense is on point. When he does get taken down, he can pop back up to his feet. He has good front chokes, good scrambling ability, great cardio, excellent durability, and he has power, and he gets wild in there. With Fakhretdinov, we see a guy that his last fight, he finally showed some big power in his hands, so obviously he has some pop in his punches, and then his wrestling has just been too much for fighters to handle in the UFC. He's taken down Andreas Michailidis and Brian Battle and controlled him for like 75% of the fight or more. Shut down all their attacks. I mean, Michailidis gave him a little bit of problems. He was able to scramble back to his feet a few times. He even got on top of Fakhretdinov at one point. Had some moments on the feet, but kind of too sloppy to capitalize on the moments that he did have. And Fakhretdinov was just too good of a wrestler, too good of cardio, and eventually just held him down. With Brian Battle, that was an impressive fight because Brian Battle has gone on to do really well since then, and he just held him down, dominated that fight. Kevin Lee took him out really fast early. Don't really know much. We could say much about that fight. I mean, Kevin Lee seems like he's done with MMA, retired, and who knows how much you can really garner from that one. Zaleski hasn't faced too many guys that have really went in there trying to take him down in his career. His last fight he did, his fight with Benoit Saint-Denis he did, and he was able to defend the majority of the takedowns there, get right back up to his feet, and he is a black belt, but I've never really seen him fight someone at this level with the grappling, and I do think that his chin is kind of going a little bit, like if Fakhretdinov can fake a takedown, fake a level change, land a big shot, he could rock Zaleski. But I definitely see this as a dogger pass matchup. He's on the feet. Fakhretdinov has not proven. Zaleski can get wild and crazy, and he can also be technical and has spinning attacks and very dangerous strikes that can knock you out. So I think Zaleski's a beast. He's also proven in the clinch. He's very proficient there with attacks in the clinch. He stays active, which could help him in this fight. But ultimately, I'm going to go with Fakhretdinov. I've been fading the guy, and I feel like, eventually you got to pick him. And I feel like he'll probably be able to get some cage control time. We saw Bubakar hold Zaleski against the fence for portions of that fight. And I do think that Fakhretdinov's striking maybe is a little bit better than people are giving it credit for because you haven't seen too much of it. So kind of just basing that off of a hunch a little bit. But I feel like Fakhretdinov could maybe do well with the striking too in spots. So I'm going to pick Fakhretdinov by decision, but I do think this is a dog or pass fight here. And with this next fight, man, I love this fight right here. Two prospects, Esteban Ribovics taking on Elvis Brenner. And Elvis Brenner, he's a shootbox guy, so you know he's going to be all pumped up fighting in Brazil. And he's a beast. He's incredibly tough, durable, comes and fights to break his opponents. He's very hittable because he wants to sit in the pocket and brawl, but he has an unbreakable chin. He'll look to land his big counter crosses, check hooks, knees, elbows, and damage his opponents. He doesn't open up and go first too much. And when he does, he can overextend a little bit. He tends to be better on the counter or in the pocket. If an opponent sits in the pocket and brawls with Brenner, that's usually bad news for them. And Brenner doesn't lose his power or his will to win even deep in fights. With Guram Kudrladze was winning against Brenner. He busted him open, and Brenner turned the tables, won via third round knockout. He only has 2 finishes via strikes, but he has power. And I haven't seen a ton of his submission wins or how they happen, but I would bet someone came after he knocked a fighter down. He will throw some leg kicks and front kicks, but kicks aren't a huge part of his game. Defensively, he'll kind of slide out of the way of the first punch, but he likes to try to stay in there and try to counter. So if fighters can throw combinations, they can land clean on him. And he could struggle a little bit with speed and straight shots. And he's a good grappler. He has heavy ground and pound. He is an okay wrestler, and he has good jiu-jitsu scrambles if he does get taken down. Quite a few armbar wins, so that's a move fighters need to watch out for. Did submit a lot of lower-level guys early on in his career, so I think even though he has 11 submissions, he's probably a more dangerous striker. Gabriel Santos was able to time some doubles, put Brenner on his back, hold him down, and Brenner had some moments too. He swept, he got on top at certain points, but ended up getting held down for portions of that third round when it was 1-1 and it cost him the fight. And Brenner, though, his ground and pound is really good when he can get on top. His last fight, he got a few takedowns against Kudrladze with the body lock, and I think that in this fight it would be smart for him to push the offensive wrestling more. Cardio-wise, Brenner has great cardio. And Esteban Ribovics, he's a skilled fighter. He's fun to watch. He'll seamlessly switch stance, very fast, fluid. He's training at Kill Cliff FC, so you know he's going to be improving too. And he keeps his distance well, and I expect him to try to box, be technical, throws nice combinations off the jab. His hand speed is really good. Ribovics will throw nice 1-2s. You'll extend the combinations, throw nice check hooks at the end that are super dangerous, good uppercuts. He rips the body. He's accurate. He lands clean, and he's a knockout threat, but I wouldn't say he's the most powerful guy. His knockouts come more through precision. His last fight, he beat the brakes off his opponent once he got tired, but he was fighting Kamwela Kirk, who's kind of a guy that tends to fade. But when Ribovics can get you against the fence or sees you getting tired, he'll pour on the volume, and he can throw a lot of volume. He's very well conditioned. I don't really see him being that aggressive here. I think that Brenner has a huge power advantage, and I think that Ribovics is super tough, but I think he's going to have to kind of fight smart in this one to get the win. Good footwork in and out. He's hard to hit. He's hard to shoot in on, but if you can get him in a brawl, you can hurt him. We did see Loik Radzhabov land on him and hurt him several times, and Ribovics is a little bit hittable. He does have okay ability with the Kimura, but I would say his wrestling is subpar. He does use the Kimura to create scrambles and get back up to his feet with it. He did hit a couple takedowns against Kamwela Kirk, but he got held down in the first round, lost that round in his last fight, and I feel like Brenner is the better wrestler and grappler, and Ribovics is going to want to try to avoid that. Ribovics does have good cardio. I feel like even in a high-paced war with Loik Radzhabov, it seemed like his conditioning was solid. I think in this fight, though, for Elvis Brenner, he should get, or at least attack takedowns early, Rivix is going to have the speed advantage, so wrestling early to try to get Rivix tired, slow him down, is going to do a lot for him. And for Rivix, I think he needs to be kind of on his bike early, move a lot, be evasive, but when he does go, throw in combination, throw hard, try to get respect. Rivix, I think, will have the big speed advantage. He can land clean on Brenner. It's just his defense when he does throw, he does leave openings, and I see Brenner as the more powerful guy. Rivix needs to have his defense more on point in this fight. Brenner could take a shot, but if Rivix extends the combo and lands a shot that Brenner doesn't see, maybe he can hurt him, but I think ultimately the guy that has a much better chance of hurting his opponent is Ellis Brenner hurting Rivix. And if he can maybe offset that with the volume, then Rivix could win. But I just feel that Brenner's going to be the better wrestler, and I think he can press forward and make it a brawl on the feet too, hurt Rivix. And early on, if it stays standing, I think there could be some issues for Brenner with the speed, but I see over time him breaking Rivix down, and I believe a late finish at the end of the second or third round will materialize. So I'm going to go with Elvis Brenner via KO TKO in round 3. And in this next fight, we got another similar type of fight to the Denise Gomes versus Angela Hill fight with the young prospect. This one's a little bit older, and Ismael Bonfim at 27, taking on the 40-year-old Vinc Pichel. Vinc Pichel is coming off a layoff, year and 6 months. Bonfim, he's coming off the first loss he's had in a long time. The first loss in his UFC career, and it was pretty recently. So both these guys are going to be coming in with something to prove. They're both coming in off losses. Bonfim, he has good boxing, wide stance, so he can move in and out of range well. He does a good job sliding in and out of range to land his punches. Nice jab, good right hand. He rips the body with the lead hook. He's aggressive, high volume. Good job with his head movement to slip and rip, and he has solid power. In his fight with Terrence McKinney, he landed that ruthless flying knee knockout, and he will throw that when guys are against the fence, but most of the time he keeps it basic and likes to box, and he is very heavy on his lead leg. He will throw a lot of looping shots too. His kick defense looks really bad in his last fight with Benoit Saint Denis. Really had no defense for the body kick outside of just trying to land a big looping counter hook that Benoit Denis was seeing coming. And Bonfim is a lot better going forwards than he is backwards. When you can push him backwards, he's the greatest striker. And Bonfim has good grappling, good defensive wrestling skills also. I don't think he has the greatest offensive wrestling. He hasn't tried to take many UFC opponents down or recent opponents that he's fought down. In this fight, though, I think mixing in takedowns with Pichel would be really smart because historically Pichel has really struggled with takedown defense. If Bonfim can get on top, Pichel is hard to hold down, but Bonfim maybe could do well there. Bonfim did defend a couple of takedowns on Benoit Saint Denis, but he did end up getting submitted with the rear naked choke, and all 4 of Bonfim's losses are submissions, so seems like when he can't stuff takedowns, he tends to get submitted. His cardio is good, but he slows down a little bit, and I think Pichel actually has the edge there, even though he's 40. With Vinc Pichel, he's coming off that year and a half layoff. He's 40 years old, so that's never good to hear, but with Vinc Pichel, we have a guy who had a lot of long layoffs. He's older. He had injuries, but his will to fight is still there, and the damage he's taken in fights isn't so bad. He's the more mobile fighter in this matchup. He'll move in and out a lot. He could switch stance. He likes to come in with power punches, big kicks, a lot of really nice feints, 1-2s, 1-1-2s, good uppercut, nice knees, nice elbows. Even though he's older, he's still fast. He's hard to corral, closes the gap really explosively. And he's been with Factory X for a while now, which for this fight, if he can get his kicking game looking anything like other Factory X fighters, it could be a big factor. I don't see Pichel really having the game plan to plant his feet, throw hard kicks though, so I think his win will have to come through him sticking and moving, break his opponent down by hitting and not being hit. Leg kicks though could be an effective weapon for Pichel, and if this fight stays standing, I think it could be competitive. Pichel is the bigger guy in my opinion, and probably the more athletic guy. He's not the best wrestler. He can get taken down. He is hard to hold down, and he can wrestle offensively a little bit, which I don't think he will in this fight, but he's going to want to be alert to the takedown in this one and try to keep it standing and stay on the feet. But Pichel has amazing cardio. He's training at elevation. And unless the travel, the weight cut, or the time off that we've seen him fight, he doesn't really have the same style anymore or same ability, then Bonfim could run away with it. But if not, I think it's kind of close. I don't really understand the line. Pichel to me is the more dynamic fighter on the feet, even though Bonfim is more technical and I think a little bit more deliberate and consistent. Pichel probably doesn't have to worry about much grappling in this fight. If Bonfim's smart, I think he'll use the wrestling to win this one easily. But if it stays standing and Pichel can not get backed up and not get corralled, he does throw the straighter, more accurate punches. Bonfim throws a lot of looping shots. And I feel like both guys have a screw loose. They have great cardio. They come to bang. So I see it being an entertaining fight either way. And I think it's going to go to decision. Originally, I was going to go with Pichel at the upset, but something's telling me just go with Bonfim as the pick. I feel like he's going to have the more consistent offense. I think if he can get Pichel on the back foot, he can kind of do a little bit of damage. And I don't necessarily know how much damage Pichel could do. I don't think Pichel can win a firefight with Bonfim either, so he's going to have to rely on athleticism at an older age. So I'm going to say Bonfim wins, but I'm going to actually say wins via decision here. And up next, we got Armen Petrosyan taking on Rodolfo Vieira. And Rodolfo Vieira is kind of a difficult fighter to get a read on due to the fights he's been given. The UFC's either given Vieira a top 15 opponent or a low-level opponent, and predictably, Vieira has been able to dispatch of and submit the 4 fighters he's beaten in the UFC, but none of those guys are still with the promotion. And his losses to Chris Curtis and Anthony Hernandez were competitive, and those guys are ranked in high level, but he lost fairly comprehensively. Armen Petrosyan is the type of guy who's going to give more of a picture to people as to where Vieira's career will go. Because Petrosyan, he's gone in there, he's gotten a couple big upsets. He beat Gregory Rodriguez, he beat Christian Leroy Duncan, but I don't necessarily see him as a title threat or maybe even like a top 10 threat. So it's a good fight to see. If Vieira can beat him, then maybe he will have a chance to be ranked. If not, then I think he'll always be kind of stuck outside the top 15. But Vieira, high-level jiu-jitsu black belt. On the feet, he has a nice jab. He throws it sharp, fast. He has a power jab, a good right hand. At range, he doesn't really offer much, and I think he's going to struggle a lot with the speed, the feints, the distance control of Petrosyan. He has to get this fight to the mat to be successful, and he can be really spastic, get bad reactions to getting hit or being pressured. Really uncomfortable in the stand-up. He got dropped by Cody Brundage and got hurt by Anthony Hernandez. So chin is a little questionable as well, if you ask me. Seems like he doesn't like body shots. And Vieira is an elite jiu-jitsu fighter, though. He's a good double leg when he can get guys against the fence. And when he can get guys to the mat, he is really good with his control, great back takes. Petrosyan is a guy that does give his back up, so I think Vieira could take his back, control him there, or even submit him. And that's going to be what he wants to try to do here. For Armen Petrosyan, he's a point fighter. He's 3-1 in the UFC. He works off the jab, side-to-side movement. Sometimes you come in with the lead hook, the right hand. He'll attack the body well. He has some real speed, good feints, head movement. He rolls with punches well, even when he's touched. And his kicks are on point. He throws fast kicks with his lead leg and rear leg to all parts of the body. Good job of targeting parts of the body and ending with kicks as well. So he'll go to the body, the head, the legs. He doesn't really differentiate. He always changes the target. And with his hands down, kind of reflex and using his eyes, defensive style, he can get clipped sometimes. He got busted up against Gregory Rodriguez, but he's a tough guy. Proved in that fight he could fight with a high pace, even with a broken nose. And I would say his grappling and wrestling are questionable. He's faced mostly fighters who have been content to keep it standing with him. Even his fight with Gregory Rodriguez, Rodriguez didn't use his wrestling nearly as much as he likely should have. And Caio Borralho was able to get the double leg on Petrosyan easily. He took his back, controlled him for a large portion of that fight. But Petrosyan didn't get submitted, and he also was able to get back to his feet a couple times. And Gregory Rodriguez also took him down, took his back, and Petrosyan was able to stay safe, eventually get back up to his feet. And seeing how easy fighters have taken Petrosyan down, though, is something that you have to be a little bit wary of when you see a guy like Vieira, who is a big, hulking type of guy with a good double leg and maybe won't be so forgiving if he does take Petrosyan down. He could submit him, but I personally see Petrosyan being too fast, too skilled on the feet. I think his footwork, his feints, his speed is going to make it hard for Vieira to get it to the mat. And I think when Petrosyan finds his range, he can land a clean combination or two and get Vieira out of there. Petrosyan isn't a big power puncher, but I think someone like Vieira on the feet who has big reactions, getting hit still, not the most technical or confident striker, I think Petrosyan could get him out of there. He's never fought someone this good on the mat, Petrosyan, but I feel like he's fought good MMA grapplers before and was able to survive when he got taken down and even put in bad positions. So I do trust him if he gets taken down early to survive, ride it out, come back in the next round and be fresh and be able to implement his game plan again. So I'm going to go with Petrosyan, and I'll say he wins via finish in the second or third round with punches. And this next fight, it's a hard fight to predict, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one, but Caio Borralho has been very impressive in the UFC, pretty much dominated everyone he's fought, taking an Abus Magomedov. And with Magomedov, his last fight was a bad one, right? I mean, the guy went in there, he got a huge golden opportunity. I mean, he fought the guy that's the champ right now in Sean Strickland, main event. If he would have won that fight, he would have been really close to a title shot with just 2 fights into the UFC. But had a good first round and then totally gassed out in the second and ended up losing the fight. And what I didn't like the most is it seemed like after that one takedown, he totally gassed out. And you know what Borralho is going to go in there and do. The guy's going to try to wrestle you and grapple. And if you're getting tired off one grappling exchange, it's not going to be a good night for you against Borralho. But maybe that was because of the short notice. Maybe it was a bad stylistic match. Who knows? I mean, maybe something happened to him. It's hard to kind of gauge. And the issue is that with that is there's not a lot of recent fights of Magomedov going long, and there's not a lot of fights where you see his takedown defense or his wrestling defense. But with Borralho, got a guy with a really good double leg who has great grappling. Seems like he has pretty good proficient striking as well, but I think if he is forced to strike for 3 rounds with a fresh Abus Magomedov, he'll probably lose that battle. But is that realistic? I mean, not from what we've seen. I mean, I can't come out here and say Magomedov's going to be able to defend the takedown, stay crisp and on point cardio-wise for 3 rounds. It's just where he's from, Dagestan, he's probably going to have good defensive wrestling when he's fresh. And he has the striking advantage, in my opinion. So if he can keep the cardio up and defend the takedowns, hey, he has a good chance to win the fight. But with him never proving his cardio at UFC level, never really beating high-level opponents, I got to go with Borralho. I think he's going to probably get the submission in the second or third. I see Magomedov probably getting tired. I just don't really have anything else to gauge off of, so it's hard for me to predict anything different. So I'm going to say Borralho wins via second round submission here. And this next fight, we got some weird matchmaking with Dontale Mays taking on Rodrigo Nascimento in a rematch of a fight that was not very competitive the first time that they fought, and I don't really see it being that competitive the second time that they fight. I mean, Dontale Mays has a chance to catch Rodrigo coming in with a knockout strike, but I don't see him as the most powerful guy, even though he got the knockout win over Arlovsky in his last fight. I still don't really rate his power. And the issue with Dontale Mays' style is, the guy wants to be on the outside striking with you and using his kicks, using his athleticism, flying attacks, hand speed, being able to dart in, dart out, and kind of use that whole cage. And when he could out-wrestle you, then he could put on a clinic with the grappling because the guy's cardio is good for a heavyweight. But when you pressure him, you have a good tight guard. His defense falls apart. The guy has terrible defense, bad boxing. And Nascimento, that's exactly his style. The guy has a good high guard, stays technical. He is a little bit slow plotting, and that's why Mays has a chance to catch him coming in. But with Mays not having the biggest power, I think it takes away a lot of the knockout threat. And Nascimento's already proved that he could take a shot. Even though he's been knocked out before, he's gotten hurt, came back and won. And I feel like, if he gets to that body lock again like he did in the first fight, he's going to take Mays down and be able to submit him on the ground. Augusto Sakai with the pressure really dominated Mays, beat him easily. And I feel like when Mays faced pressure strikers, it takes away a lot of his game, his kicks, and he's just not very effective. And Sakai didn't have a submission threat. He did take him down a couple of times. He did dominate him striking wise, but with Nascimento having that submission threat, I think that's going to be the finish of the fight. And I feel like it's going to be the same kind of story. We're going to see maybe early on, May's going to be strong in the clinch. He'll maybe be able to defend a couple clinch takedowns, disengage. But I think Nascimento is going to stay in his face, be competitive, and slightly better with the striking. And I think eventually he's going to take him down and submit him. So give me Rodrigo Nascimento to go out there and kind of do a similar thing that he did to Dontale in his last fight. And this next fight, I like this matchup as well. It's continuing the trend of kind of the whole card with prospect versus veteran fight, 38 years old versus 26-year-old, a guy with a lot of UFC experience against a guy that's an up-and-comer that's 2-0. And interesting one because Gabriel Bonfim, he's 13-0 in his career, 15-0 according to, I don't know if that's correct on there. That's UFC saying 15-0, but I think he's 13-0. I could be wrong about that, though. So whatever he is, 13-0, 15-0, he's finished everyone that he's fought, and he's facing the guy that's unfinishable. I mean, 27 fights for Nicholas Dalby. You know he's been in there with some high-level competition, and the guy's never been finished in his career. So it's a really interesting fight. I mean, Bonfim's been able to, in the UFC, go out there and take two guys out in, 2 minutes of cage time, maybe a little over. I mean, he's really shown nothing outside the fact that he can be very aggressive, good boxing early, and really nasty front choke game. And even in majority of his fights, he's taking guys out really quick in the first round. So you don't really know how he's going to do when he gets extended or how he's going to look. And Nicholas Dalby is the type of guy that's going to extend the fight. So it's going to be fun to watch in that aspect. But I think from a skill standpoint in the cage, I think Bonfim has the edge there. I like Bonfim's style. He's similar to his brother, where same kind of thing. He likes to have a boxing-heavy style, come forward, kind of slip and rip body jab, body hooks, looking for the big right hands. But I feel like Gabriel Bonfim, is a little bit sharper with his jab. I think he's a little bit more composed. He doesn't get as wild in there. He doesn't loop his shots as much. When he hurts you, he goes for the finish, and he's very accurate. But I think that he's not nearly as wild when he doesn't have you hurt, and kind of a little bit more composed than Ismael. And his grappling is better. I mean, the guy has really good front choke submissions. He'll go for body lock takedowns and mix in offensive wrestling a lot, which I think in this fight he's going to be able to hit takedowns easily. And, I think the guy's the real deal. But you do see he has those similar issues to Ismael as well, where he could sit in the pocket a little bit and be hittable. We did see in one of his fights, he got rocked. He got put in danger with the rear naked choke at the end of the second round in one of his fights. Came back in the third and knocked the guy out, so that showed some good recoverability and heart. But he also is heavy on his lead leg, a little bit hittable on the feet. And we haven't really seen him face a wrestler, someone that can put him on his back that defends those submissions early, and see how Bonfim deals with that. But Nicholas Dalby, we got a guy that really mobile, long stance, kind of a tall, lanky guy for the weight. And he likes to move, be very evasive, then come in with kicks, straight shots. He also has pretty good offensive wrestling and decent defensive wrestling, but I feel like his defensive wrestling has kind of gotten worse as he's aged, and can get taken out pretty easily now. But he's good at surviving. I mean, the guy's extremely hard to finish, hard to submit, very durable. The one time that he did technically get finished, where that fight got overturned with Jesse Ronson, Dalby was fighting uncharacteristic in that fight. I think he was fighting a 55 that he thought he could run over, and he kind of pressured forward, ran into a strike, hurt him, and then got choked. But this one, I think he's going to be very cognizant and aware of Bonfim's dangerous attributes, but I feel like Bonfim's going to be able to cut him off. Maybe Dalby will have some moments just because he's a vet, he's crafty, but I think Bonfim will win a lot of the exchanges. I think he'll be able to hit takedowns, and I see this one going to decision, though. I think Bonfim's going to have to win a decision for the first time. It's really difficult to finish Dalby. No one has done it yet, not on steroids, so I think that 27 guys have tried, and I don't know if the 28th guy that attempts it is going to be the guy to finish Dalby. So I'm going to say Bonfim wins this one, but via decision. And finally, we got the main event. Pretty easy fight to break down. Derrick Lewis taking on Jailton Almeida. And just, there's some things going on before this fight. I mean, Derrick Lewis just did get that, I think he was going like 130 in a set 55 mile an hour zone or 65 mile an hour zone, which is pretty crazy. But man, I mean, when you got a Ferrari, Lamborghini, whatever it was that he had, I mean, you buy those cars because they go fast, right? So I guess maybe that's what Derrick Lewis was doing. But hopefully, he learned his lesson from that. But I don't really see that as a big deal. I mean, guy likes danger. He fights in the cage for a living, and I don't think he was drunk or anything like that. But, he's fighting Jailton Almeida, and obviously, it's contrast styles. It's a guy that goes out there as the most knockouts in UFC history against a guy that's barely gotten hit in any of his UFC fights, has taken these guys down and submitted them or TKO'd them on the mat with ease since he's came into the heavyweight division. And we got a guy in Derrick Lewis who's a huge heavyweight that's cut weight to make the limit, and a guy in Jailton Almeida who's a 205er that's came up to heavyweight because the guys can't wrestle and they suck at grappling. So he said, I'm going to come up here and take all you fat boys out and get to the title quick. So, is Derrick Lewis going to be able to catch him with a flying knee or a wild strike, uppercut him, catch him coming in before he takes him down and knock him out? Is he going to be able to show that just get up Derrick Lewis grappling defense? I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, Jailton Almeida, I think he's a very athletic guy, very explosive, really good setting up the takedowns. And if he just doesn't get caught coming in, I think he's going to be able to get him down and submit him like we saw Sergey Spivak. I know Derrick Lewis just did get that really sick knockout with the flying knee over Marcos Cherio de Lima, but you have to remember what was going on before that. I mean, he got submitted in the first round against Spivak. He got knocked out really fast against Sergey Pavlovich. He got finished against Tai Tuivasa. So I'm not necessarily 100% going to say he's back just because he landed a flying knee and kind of won a fight 1 minute into the fight off a crazy technique. I want to see him come in here, and if he could beat a guy like Almeida, hey, I mean, the guy's going to be on his, third title run, but I'm going to see Almeida gets the first round submission. Ultimately, I think it's going to be, either Derrick Lewis catches him or he gets taken down and gets submitted, so that's how I see this fight going. But there you have it, guys. That's my full card breakdown and predictions for UFC Sao Paulo, Derrick Lewis versus Jailton Almeida. Great card, in my opinion. Great matchmaking. And as far as the party of the week, I'm going to just do a play of the week, and that's going to be an Armen Petrosyan. So Armen Petrosyan is going to be my play of the week. And for my most confident pick, I'm going to say Eduarda Moura. I also think Eduarda Moura inside the distance is a good play, so that could be kind of another play of the week, Eduarda Moura inside the distance, Armen Petrosyan. So thanks for watching, guys. Check out the Patreon. Like I said at the beginning of the video, put some comments down below, man. Let's get some interaction. Comment on the video. Like the video. Let's get to 150 likes. Let's blow this video up. I really appreciate it. Tell me what you think about these new visuals. Do you like them? Do you dislike them? It's going to be for only kind of people that have already been in the UFC. It's hard to do it for non-UFC fighters. So let me know. But yeah, man, appreciate everyone that watches these videos. And I'll catch you guys soon.